Okay, let's just dive right in. We are tackling um, one of the most critical and, let's be honest, challenging areas in all of pharmacology.
Absolutely.
Antineoplastic agents. These are the drugs used to fight cancer, and if you're getting ready for an exam or just trying to master this chapter, you know it is packed.
It is. It's really the ultimate tightrope walk in medicine.
So our mission today is to cut through some of that density.
Right, and give you a really organized deep dive into these agents. We're going to focus on the foundational chemotherapy drugs, the classics.
And these are designed to target the cancer cells, the neoplasms.
Yes, but by their very nature, they also inflict damage on rapidly multiplying normal cells. And that collateral damage, that's what creates the severe adverse effects that really dominate nursing care.
It's the central problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's basically a controlled poison. So before we can even talk about the treatment, we have to talk about the enemy. What is cancer at the cellular level?
It all starts with one cell that has gone rogue. The sources define several key characteristics. The first one is anaplasia.
Anaplasia.
This is where the cell just loses its identity. It loses that cellular differentiation, and it basically forgets what its job is supposed to be.
And its only job becomes dividing.
Just dividing.
Yeah.
And once it forgets its job, it develops what's called autonomy.
It's off the grid.
Completely. It loses all normal homeostatic growth controls. It just keeps expanding no matter what the rest of the body is signaling.
But the truly terrifying part, I think, is metastasis.
Oh, for sure. That's the ability to travel through the circulatory or the lymphatic systems and just colonize entirely new sites.
And to support all that growth, the tumor does something else. Angiogenesis.
Yes. It releases these enzymes to basically force the body to generate new blood vessels, all to feed the tumor with oxygen and nutrients. It literally creates its own supply chain.
Incredible. So when we talk about tumors, we generally break them down into two main camps.
Right. You have your solid tumors, so that's things like carcinomas, which start in epithelial cells like breast or skin, and sarcomas from connective tissue like bone.
And then the other camp.
The hematological malignancies. So your leukemias and lymphomas, which involve the blood-forming organs.
Okay, so once we understand the scope of the problem, how do we fight it? This gets us to the core strategy of chemotherapy.
The cell kill theory. And the key thing to get here is that it's not about wiping out the entire tumor in one shot. It's a percentage game.
Right. So imagine you give a dose, and maybe it kills, say, 90% of the cancer cells. That sounds amazing.
It does, but that remaining 10% immediately starts multiplying again.
And some cells are just dormant or resistant to begin with.
Exactly. And that is why combination therapy over these long, carefully timed cycles is so crucial. The goal isn't always 100% eradication by the drug itself.
The goal is to reduce the tumor burden.
Yes, to reduce the total number of cells down to a point where the patient's own immune system can finally step in and eliminate what's left. It's a multi-pronged attack.
And that need for precision and timing is why we have, 5 distinct categories of these classic drugs?
That's right. They're all toxic, but they each hit the cancer cell at a different, very specific point in its life cycle.
So let's start with, I guess, the sledgehammer approach.
That's a good way to put it. The alkylating agents. These are the big exception because they are non-cell cycle specific.
Hold on, so if they're non-specific and they can hit even resting cells, doesn't that make them incredibly dangerous to healthy tissue?
It does. That's the critical trade-off. They react chemically with RNA, DNA, or other proteins.
And they bind powerfully to the DNA.
Right. And because they don't rely on the cell being in a rapid division phase, they're most useful for those slow-growing, more chronic cancers, things like lymphomas, leukemias, and myelomas.
So for nursing, the takeaway isn't just the bone marrow suppression, which we'll see everywhere. It's the absolute necessity of using adjunctive safety drugs.
Yes, think of these adjuncts as shields for the healthy cells. We use a drug called amifostine to protect from the severe toxic effects of something like cisplatin.
And there's another big one, mesna.
Critically important. We use mesna to reduce the incidence of hemorrhagic cystitis, which is a major, really painful complication from drugs like ifosfamide or cyclophosphamide. These cytoprotective agents are just non-negotiable.
So if alkylating agents are the sledgehammer, we need precision. Which brings us to our next category, the antimetabolites.
Now, these are intensely focused. They are S-phase specific.
The synthesis phase.
Exactly. Targeting the cell only when it's actively building new DNA. Their mechanism is pretty elegant. They're structurally similar to the natural building blocks the cell needs for DNA synthesis.
So they're mimics. They trick the cell,
They do. By mimicking or replacing those needed pieces, they just inhibit DNA production. The prototype here is methotrexate.
which specifically inhibits folic acid reductase. But the side effects from high-dose methotrexate, I mean, they can be absolutely devastating. This leads to a pretty unique rescue protocol, doesn't it?
It really does. We use leucovorin or livaleucovorin. This is an active form of folic acid that we give strategically to rescue the normal cells from those severe effects of the methotrexate.
It's like a controlled antidote.
It is. You're protecting the patient's healthy tissue after the drug has done its job on the cancer.
Okay, moving on. We have the antineoplastic antibiotics.
And these are also cytotoxic, but they work by physically inserting themselves between the base pairs in the DNA chain.
Which causes the whole DNA molecule to get tangled and mutant.
Right. And here is a huge safety alert. We have to stress the name confusion. If the drug name ends in rubicin, doxorubicin, you have to check that order so carefully.
And the toxicity profile for this class is uniquely frightening. Our prototype, doxorubicin, causes the usual myelosuppression and complete alopecia.
Critically, it's highly associated with cardiac toxicity.
It gets taken up by the heart.
It does, and that cardiac risk is why we have another powerful adjunctive agent, dexrazoxin. This is a chelating agent approved specifically to interfere with those cardiotoxic effects of high-dose doxorubicin. It helps preserve heart function.
Let's talk about our fourth major group, the mitotic inhibitors.
These are M-phase specific, so they kill the cells right as mitosis, cell division, begins.
By blocking the cell's ability to actually split into two daughter cells.
Exactly. The prototype here is vincristine. And what's really striking is its completely distinct adverse effect profile.
This isn't about GI upset.
Not primarily, no. Vincristine is all about neurological issues. Peripheral neuropathy, ataxia, neuritic pain, and even specific cranial nerve manifestations.
And this class, maybe more than any other, demands extreme nursing vigilance around one specific complication, extravasation.
Oh, this isn't just a complication. This is a potential amputation.
That's how serious it is.
It is. If these IV drugs leak outside the vein into the tissue, they cause necrosis, cell death, and cellulitis. Prevention is everything.
So using a distal vein, avoiding small veins?
And crucially, the source stresses avoiding the use of an infusion pump.
Because the pump would just keep forcing the toxic drug deeper into the tissue.
Making the damage so much worse.
Okay, finally, we get to what feels like the softest touch among these classics. Hormones and hormone modulators.
Right. These are receptor site specific. They target cancers, like many breast or prostate tumors, that are hormone sensitive.
Meaning they need hormones like estrogen or androgen to grow.
And the drugs simply block that stimulation at the receptor sites. Our prototype, tamoxifen, competes with estrogen for those binding sites. It's a potent anti-estrogen.
But while that sounds gentler, blocking estrogen has its own consequences.
Of course. You get menopause-associated symptoms like hot flashes, vaginal spotting, and critically, an increased risk of cardiovascular disease and pulmonary emboli.
So we've covered the 5 categories. Now we need to synthesize the overarching nursing care, because no matter which drug you're giving, you will almost always see 3 universal toxicities.
Yes, and it's all because of the effect on rapidly multiplying normal cells in the GI tract, the hair follicles, and the bone marrow.
Let's start with number 1, which is often the limiting factor for redosing, bone marrow suppression.
Which leads to anemia, low red cells, leukopenia, low white cells, and thrombocytopenia, low platelets.
And management is all about protection and stimulation.
Entirely. If the patient is neutropenic, their infection risk just skyrockets. Your teaching has to be intense. Avoid crowded places, record a temperature immediately.
And one really specific instruction I remember is never dig in garden soil without protective gloves.
Right, because that's where pathogens live.
Yeah.
And then we use stimulating agents to boost those numbers, like aproatin alpha for red blood cells and filgrastim for white blood cells.
But there is a huge safety caveat with aproatin alpha that you absolutely need to know.
A huge one. While it helps with anemia, if hemoglobin levels get above 10 grams per deciliter, it's been associated with more rapid cancer growth and an increased risk of cardiac events. It is a very tight therapeutic window.
Wow. Okay, the second universal toxicity, GI toxicity.
Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and those awful debilitating mouth sores, stomatitis.
We have to anticipate this and hit it hard.
It means combination antiemetic therapy and dansitron, aprepitant, maybe dronabinol often, with corticosteroids. And supportive care is paramount. frequent, diligent mouth care and small, frequent meals.
And number 3 is alopecia, or hair loss. It seems cosmetic, but it's much more than that.
It's critical for temperature regulation and for psychosocial well-being. The key nursing intervention is to encourage the patient to buy a wig or a head covering before the hair loss starts. It really helps promote body image and self-esteem.
We also have to touch on the most vulnerable populations.
Yes. For children, it's all about intense monitoring for hydration and nutrition and dealing with the isolation from infection risk.
And for pregnant or lactating women.
An absolute contraindication. These drugs are devastating to a developing fetus or a neonate. Barrier contraceptives are strongly urged.
And older adults.
They're just more susceptible to CNS and GI effects, and because their liver and kidney function might be decreased, you need baseline and periodic renal and hepatic function tests. It's essential for dose adjustments.
So we've really established that traditional chemotherapy is, well, often a necessary sledgehammer. Let's shift now to the new frontier.
The scalpel.
Exactly. The goal now is finding cancer cell-specific agents that target processes only happening in abnormal cells, sparing the healthy tissue.
And this brings us to the protein tyrosine kinase inhibitors, or PTKIs, drugs like imatinib. They act on specific enzymes, these tyrosine kinases, that are required for protein building by only specific tumor cells.
They shut down that specific growth pathway.
Effectively, yes. Imatinib, or Gleevec, was a huge breakthrough because it targets the specific kinase created by the Philadelphia chromosome abnormality in chronic myelocytic leukemia.
So the benefit is you see dramatically fewer of those universal toxicities.
Much less severe alopecia, less GI upset, less myelosuppression compared to the traditional drugs. But we have to acknowledge the challenges.
The cost.
The cost is staggering. Imatinib can be over $30,000 a year. And while the immediate side effects are better, we're still tracking the long-term risks, which can include new cancers and even cardiac toxicity.
So we've gone all the way from the basic biology of cancer, anaplasia, and metastasis through 5 distinct classes of really toxic agents to these highly specialized kinase blockers.
And the core takeaway through all of it is the absolute necessity of rigorous nursing vigilance. You're managing bone marrow suppression, GI toxicity, and the constant risk of extravasation.
And that vigilance is so critical because the landscape itself is shifting.
It is. Given that dormant cells can emerge years later, and with new strategies like metronomic chemotherapy, which is low doses at shorter intervals, cancer is increasingly viewed as a chronic disease.
Not an acute, sudden disorder.
Exactly.
Which really raises a fundamental question for you, the learner, to think about. If cancer is managed long-term, like diabetes or hypertension, how does that fundamentally change the nursing care plan?
And the quality of life considerations for patients receiving these drugs over the course of decades, not just months?
That is the challenge for the next generation of pharmacology and care.
A profound thought to consider.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into antineoplastic agents. We really hope this summary helps you master this critical body of knowledge.